Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast In Shape to Grow for its English version. So, in today's episode, I'm very happy to have Sean Crushton as a guest. Sean is a multi-podcaster with 4 successful podcasts. He was also a YouTuber with more than 100,000 followers, and after 7 years of very good content, he just quit it. So you're going to discover a very interesting entrepreneur who is dedicated to share a maximum of his knowledge, expertise. You will discover his career and how he went from underground wellness, a very insightful and interesting YouTube channel about health, and how he went to the mindset coaching, entrepreneurship, and developing his own academy. So I hope this podcast will inspire you as it did for me. And as usual, if you have any questions, not about my beautiful accent, but about the content, you can write down your questions or directly contact Sean. Till next time, take care. Good morning, Sean. How are you today?
I'm good, David. Just hanging out. I'm happy it's Friday. Happy to be talking to you. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, I'm very happy. Usually I always start with the keystone of my guest career and life. But today I'd like to start with the first question before telling anything about you. I have a question because preparing this interview, I was like ready to talk to a old friend because I know you from the beginning of underground wellness and your summit. I probably own 3 or 4 your summit, and I know you, but you don't know me. You have no clue who I am, and I was wondering, why did you accept the interview, the invitation of a stranger telling that, Sean, I'd like to interview you in my podcast? Because I'm not G.P. Sears, I'm not Elliot Hulse, or I'm not Paul Check or anything, but you straight away accepted. So I'd like to know why.
To be honest with you, you didn't send me a big, long email. You know what I mean? Well, usually when people invite me onto a podcast, they send me like an 8-paragraph email, and it just takes time to read, and a lot of time I don't read them, to be totally real with you. You were just very short, to the point. I appreciate the fact that you had been following me all the way since Underground Wellness, and you mentioned Paul Check, which is pretty cool. And so I just said yes. I mean, there was no real science behind it at all. Yeah, I just thought it'd be a good time.
Yeah, and we're gonna go talk about that because you are an expert in the mindset world. So I'm gonna start with a little bit of your career, and progressively, I hope that people who are listening will discover your career and will be inspired by what you do for yourself and for the world. So you started studying exercise sciences in San Diego University in 1995. The exact same year, I was in Evanston High School as an exchange student in Wyoming. So I wasn't very far from San Diego. And my friend from Wyoming don't know why I'm always mentioning it, because they think Evanston is just the middle of nowhere. But for me, it was a very amazing year. So I like to mention that I'm from this high school. So, and you started to studying exercise physiology and sciences because you wanted to be a personal trainer and fight the obesity in the world. And you went from failure to failure. And we did the same studies. I did exercise sciences back in Belgium. And I totally understand your feeling, but you went from failure to failure, and you started to study another part of health, which is a holistic more approach. And my second question would be, how did you use this failure as a way of learning more? Do you think it's something you had inside you, taking a failure as an opportunity? Or at that time, did you have mentors? Or how did you took these failures as opportunities?
I'm not really sure where exactly that came from, seeing failure as an opportunity. It may have came or come through my reading, possibly. As a kid, actually, really as a child, I used to read a lot of books about Michael Jordan
All
and
right.
his work ethic and
Okay.
his failures, not making the basketball team, you know what I mean, in his like freshman year of high school, that kind of thing. So maybe I learned it there. Maybe I learned it from my parents. Maybe later in life, I learned it from like reading Napoleon Hill books, seeing failure as feedback, seeing failure as an opportunity. But just for me, during that time and still now, um, I saw my failures as a personal trainer as, again, feedback. It was a way for me to say, you know what, there's something wrong with this program.
Mm-hmm.
What had been programmed into me during college was, food guide pyramid, high carbohydrate diet, low fat diet, and after a couple of years of doing that with my clients or recommending that with my clients and seeing that this did not work,
Mm, of
I couldn't keep blaming my clients for that.
course.
Something else had to be going on. And so I've always considered myself to be a very open-minded individual. And so, it was time to look elsewhere for information. And that's where, or when I stumbled upon like Paul Chek
Mm-hmm.
and Dr. Mercola and Weston A. Price and Francis Pottinger and Lauren Cordain and the paleo diet. And, what they were saying just really made a whole lot of sense to me. Like, eat
Mm-hmm.
real food. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like, yeah, yeah.
We're gonna go. We're gonna talk about that because I'm teaching for the last 7 years nutrition for coaches, and I take your just eat real food, and I give your example as a very nice summary of what a coach can do in nutrition. It's first to teach to eat real food. So we're gonna talk about that in a few minutes. But do you think then that this failure as an opportunity is a mix between your way of seeing life and your environment? Because if I understand, it's not someone who said, oh, it's not a failure, it's an opportunity. But on the same time, it's a mix of maybe your parents and books. And so do you think in this situation, it's a mix between your personality at the beginning and the environment that can give you the opportunities to grow?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I was raised this way.
Mm-hmm.
I had a very entrepreneurial father.
Okay.
My mom and dad both had really strong work ethics. Um, they taught me that I can do anything I put my mind to. And so a lot of that just comes from my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Those first 7 years of your life is so important in terms of like the programming in your brain. There's a Bible verse, or no, maybe a Saint somebody, I forget who it was, that
Yeah.
said, give me a child for 7 years and I have them for life, right? Because that first 7 years is so important. And so I learned a lot of things during that period and was able to see like modeling through
Yeah.
my parents that was instilled in me that led to me doing whatever I'm doing in my adult life. And so, yes, the environment was incredibly important.
Yeah.
Going to schools, which was I went to private schools. So they were always pretty small classrooms, got a lot of attention from teachers as well, got pulled to the side, quite a bit, got encouraged a lot. And so that kind of support really goes a long way. And I understand that like not everybody gets that.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of the human brain, that the human brain can be reprogrammed, through neuroplasticity to create and to recreate and reinvent yourself.
Yeah, that's even more fascinating because I didn't know that about you preparing this interview, and we're going to talk about that because you talk a lot about mindset today.
Oh yeah.
So in 2007, you started Underground Wellness Channel, and I can't remember exactly when I saw your first video, but I remember that you were kicking your own ass on the grass with another trainer who was giving the training, and I said, who is this trainer who get trained in front of the camera and beating his own ass to explain? And I totally, I was totally attracted by the way you were presenting your YouTube channel and your videos. So in 2008, you started the functional diagnosed nutrition certifications. You also did HLC. By that time, I think, because I did my first HLC in 2004, and at that time it was also it wasn't called HLC at that time. It was NLC, was Nutrition and Lifestyle Coaching, I remember. And so you were on this holistic and nutrition and digestive and immune system for 7 years, 300 podcast interviews, and it's very important for me to explain to the audience what I want to talk with you. 300 podcast interview, 7 online summit about health with a lot of success. I remember you did mentor David White that I helped for his first summit. So you had a lot of success. You also wrote a book, The Dark Side of Fat Loss. I can't remember, but you mentioned that this book was used in university to teach nutrition. And when I saw that, I said, oh, I'm going to contact Sean and I'm going to ask him to translate it in French. And I want to use it also for my teaching. Can't remember if I did contacted you for that. But anyways, so it's a long time, because in 2015, you retired from the health industry. Today, your channel is still with 100,000 followers. Your last video is 2 years old and the previous one 5 years old, but it's still there. It's amazing. We can see your first videos where you were a little bit younger. It's funny to see how everyone grows and takes some more presence. It's I think it's really cool. And you started to work in the personal development area with the show and question session. With the first guest, very important guest, Bob Proctor, with The Heart of Living in January 2016. And in April 2017, you did your last podcast with the show and question session, Unlocking the Power of the Unfocused Mind. And then you start a third podcast, Quote of the Day. And today, it's funny because yesterday, Sean, I was researching frustration. And today's quote is frustration. I thought it was pretty funny to see the synchronicity. So today is your 1411th episode of the Quote of the Day, Changing Your Life in 12 Minutes Daily. And in 2020, you started your academy, or maybe a little bit before, but really helping coaches about the mindset about money. And you created today the Boss Brain Method, a method that helps certified health coach to attract the perfect clients, which is effectively, obviously, something pretty hard. So you work on the mindset. My other question today for you, Sean, will be, all these projects are successes. So you switched, and a few weeks ago, you studied another podcast, The Mindset Coach.
Yes.
So my question would be, how do you know you need to move on? You have successful project like Underground Wellness, and I totally understand. I remember the day you did this YouTube video saying, I'm retired. I said, what? I was following your videos like every time you were launching a video. I probably missed a few, but you retired. And at that time, if I remember, you already, you did the online summit. It was successful. The YouTube channel was successful. And then you go from success to success, but how do you know you need to move on? How do you know that, okay, for me and for my audience, it's time to change?
Well, there's a couple of things for underground. Well, and I appreciate all the background you did. You did some research. I'm very impressed with that. So for underground wellness, it was 7 years of helping people with their health, and I was just done. I was just no longer into it. There's only so many ways that I can recommend that people eat real food. You know, it's a very, very simple message. And I also felt like, you know, doing my podcast, let's say you have a health challenge. This Tuesday, someone's going to say it's vitamin D deficiency. Next Tuesday, someone's going to say it's adrenal insufficiency. The next week, it's going to be somebody saying you got whatever. And I felt like while it was helping people, it also might have been frustrating and confusing people, making them a little bit paranoid about their health. And, you know, my interest started to drift. I started to find myself reading more books about personal development than I was actually reading books about health. Like I'd be reading a book about personal development and then I had to get ready to interview somebody for my podcast. And I'd be like, oh, I got to go read their book, which is going to say the same thing that everybody else's book said, that my problem is whatever their health expertise is. And so I just fell out of love with it. You know, life has seasons, and that season of my life was over, and people thought I was crazy to move on because it was a multi-million-dollar business, but I just can't keep showing up for work if I'm not really into it, like emotionally. So with the other,
if I can ask you, how did you felt it? Like, was it in the morning when you wake up, you said, I don't want to go to work? I mean, to work like on your office, but how did you really feel that the drive wasn't there anymore? Because you were tired, or you were annoyed, obviously, of preparing the next eat real food? Like it was just getting sick of it? Or
I was sick of it. I was annoyed sometimes. I just wasn't feeling it. It's so hard to describe it. I didn't feel the passion for it anymore.
Yeah, because you are a passionate person. I mean, when we see each of your podcasts, you start with the good mindset, the energy, and every YouTube. And I started my channel a few months ago regularly, and it's hard to share a message when you don't feel like on top of the game. So, and when we see your video, we see this energy, this passion. So do you think if we look at your last underground wellness video, we see the difference, or you could go over this low energy, perform, and afterwards say, no,
I think, I stopped doing videos way before I stopped doing podcast. It was very hard to split my time between doing the preparation for the podcast and also shooting videos at the same time. I remember having a conversation with Elliot Hulse about this, and he's like, yo, you got to pick your one thing. And my one thing was podcasting. And so I still had the passion for health when I stopped making YouTube videos, but I didn't stop making podcasts for probably another 2 years. And if you actually listen to some of those last podcasts that I did, you can kind of tell I wasn't very into it. People can tell by my tone. People can tell by the emails that I was writing that I was just kind of over it and ready to do something else. And, you know, I really didn't know what that something else was, but I was just ready to stop doing what I was doing. And I did, you know, and I think over the years, I've developed a pretty good set of skills when it comes to the internet and putting out information to the people. So, you know, whatever my next move was, I knew that I was going to be able to apply the same skill set to whatever I created next. And that's what I did.
So you mean that you could feel before it's too late, you know, like the last game of this high-level elite sport athlete that want to do one more and then lose, and then we just remember it's lost? Do you think you could, on each of your project, you could stop before it was too late?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a really good point, especially the boxing analogy. There's a lot of boxers who will fight way past their prime and they just get their asses kicked, and that becomes your memory of who they were. Like Roy Jones, one of my favorite fighters. I think about Roy Jones's great fights, but I also think about him getting knocked out in his last several like real fights. And so, and I don't really think it was so much for me about timing of like trying to get out while I'm near the top. It was just a matter of like, yo, I'm just not into this. And I can't be the guy who tells people to do what they love when I wasn't really doing what I was loving anymore. And so it was time to stop. I had an enormous amount of money saved up, so it wasn't like I had to work.
Yeah.
And so I just like, hey, let's just take a year off and see where this takes us. And it's taken to me to where I am right now. And that's the beauty of, this whole thing is like, a lot of personal development people say like, you don't have to know how. Like, you don't have to know the whole plan. You don't know how, you don't have to control everything. And so I just kind of like left it up to the universe to, take me to wherever I was supposed to land and to trust it. And, things have gone pretty well.
Yeah, because you went from the health industry to the personal development industry with this year of in between to prepare and to let. And how did you knew that it was a good time to start again?
I just got that itch. It was time. Prior to starting Underground Wellness, I mean, I didn't do this consciously, but I sat my butt down and I read a lot and I studied. And when I started my YouTube channel, I, for the most part, knew what I was talking about. I had a good amount of competence when it came to the topic at hand. I wanted to kind of be the same way when it came to personal development. I wanted to be able to know what I was talking about. I can very clearly remember the first time I was interviewed in the personal development space by JJ Virgin. This was before I was ready. And it was like a 12-minute interview. And she was asking me some personal development stuff. And I had no idea what I was talking about. I was like, do affirmations. I had no clue. And, I never want to feel that way. I never want to feel like I don't know what I'm talking about. And so that year was about me sitting my butt down at my desk, in my bed, in my hot tub, and just reading for hours a day and connecting dots and listening to John DeMartini and listening to Bob Proctor and listening to Tony Robbins on my walks around the neighborhood, just constantly listening. And just like, I got these two big boards in my back office and just writing things and essentially doing the exact same thing that I did in the house space, connecting dots and figuring out a way in which I can explain this to people in a way that they can understand. And at some point, especially after studying Bob's stuff so much, Bob Proctor, the late Bob Proctor stuff so much, I'm not sure how it happened, but he became my first interviewee on my new podcast. And it was a very, very, very good interview. And off I went. Yeah.
So that's how you did your Amazon University degree, as you mentioned in a few articles.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. There's these like 3 huge books right here. These 3 right here.
Yeah.
Law of Success, Prosperity Bible, Mind is Your Master, The Miracle Power of Your Mind. Like, I went through those like highlighter, like just learning the power of the mind. I'm a strong believer, like what you put in is what you get out. And so I just put a lot of time in, and that's led to a whole bunch of other stuff. Now, what they talk about in those books, I can explain to you like what happens in the brain when you do that stuff. And so I just like to read, man. It's fun.
Yeah, and you are responsible for a few of my books beyond this.
I see them. I've been scoping out your whole collection while we've been talking, man. You got some good stuff in there.
Yeah, and a few of your recommendations. I remember a little tiny book when you showed this book. I can't remember which one, the name of it, but say, oh, if Sean said it's a good one, I'm gonna buy it. And I thought it was a funny one. It was like some kind of other readings, but I really enjoyed. So, and your favorite mantra is little by little, a little becomes a lot.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's based on all your readings again and again, and from different authors, you reach this level of excellence. And what I was interested in is when you say that you already have the mindset from your parents, hard worker and the good environment, but you still work and study so much.
Mhm.
So what is the drive behind this? Because in the health industry, you wanted to cure the obesity in the world. I mean,
Mhm.
and when you switch to the mindset and the personal development, it's and I remember one of your interview with Paul Chek a few years ago when you said that of course if you don't have the mindset, it's getting very stressful to do all these programs, all these supplements, and it's overwhelming. And I
Mhm.
totally understand it because I do the same job, and I like to help the people to have the few informations to go forward. So what is today the drive, the passion you have to study that much, to share it with the world?
Um, it's a combination of selfishness and selflessness. Um, Selfishness meaning I just love to read just for myself. It's just who
Makes
I
me feel
am.
good, you know?
Yeah, my mom and dad used to take me to the bookstore before I can even read. It's just who I am. I can't
Yeah.
not read. It's just I just can't. And so part of it is just me trying to learn stuff. I'm a very curious person. I also like to know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so I love to read different books on different topics so I can have a good conversation with someone. But the selfless part is I want to help people.
Mhm.
And like I've done a great job of helping a lot of people around the world over this last 10 years or so. Now I want to help other people who want to do the same get unstuck. I mean, how many people do you know who are like, I'm going to start an online business, and they take courses and all that stuff and they never do anything with it? They got like 15 different certifications. They've dropped like $25,000 on them when they can't get a client, or they're afraid to go on Instagram, or they're afraid to make a video. And there's real people out there that can use that message who really need that person's help. So, what I do, it really drives me is like helping people like get past their limiting beliefs about themselves, about money, about marketing, about sales, right? I'm here to help people to silence their inner critic. That inner critic's like, you can't do this. This isn't for you. Nobody wants to hear you. You're never stand out. People are just going to criticize you. And I also want to help people to be able to master their emotions when it comes to business and entrepreneurship, because, it is an emotional journey that you're going to go through with a lot of ups and downs. And not only do you have to be able to deal with the lows, you also have to be able to deal with the highs.
Yeah.
Because, when you have success, and you don't feel like you're worthy of that success, you will throw it away very quickly.
Yeah.
Or if you have success and you get full of yourself, which I was for a little while there, you think you're the big shit, then, people stop liking you, because you're no longer relatable and you just come off wrong. And so, that's my job, to help people with the mindset, but also on top of that, to show them the basics on how to get out there. So they can go from being like a left out entrepreneur, who's like, oh my God, everybody's so successful and I'm not, to actually being a standout entrepreneur where they're building a personal brand and actually helping people. And so, I kind of think of it as, you ever see a picture of your grandparents and it's like a whole family picture? And it's like your grandparents and it's like your aunts and uncles and your parents. And then there's like the grandkids and there's the great grandkids. Like I think of it that way because I can help people in many different industries in terms of entrepreneurship and business to help people, and so, but it started with the mindset of me helping them to clear those blocks. And, if your mindset's not right and you're trying to start a business, you're probably not going to have a business.
Yeah, totally. So if you look at yourself back in university and now with all the knowledge you have with reprogramming and the mindset science, do you see yourself backwards, like going through the different reprogramming by your expertise? Or is it because you've learned all this science that you could switch and work on your own limits? Or did you understand what I mean? Is it like backwards you see, oh, I was doing the right thing, but I didn't know that I was doing the right thing to reprogram myself, because as I mentioned earlier, you went from success to success and not from a failure to, except the personal training, obesity, old school stuff, but you went from success to success and you grow and you grow. But did you do it by your curiosity and your environment you had as a child, and looking back you saw that actually you were reprogramming unconsciously your brain towards a better functioning? Or
Go ahead, sorry.
no, or did you use what you were learning to adapt at the same time?
I think there's been a lot of adaptation and reprogramming that I've done through my reading and my research. Like, not only have I connected dots for the people I help, but I've connected dots for myself and become a better person through that. Certainly more self-aware, more emotionally intelligent. I've gotten past like my money mindset blocks, which I used to have like a lot of money mindset blocks going on. But, as I talked about earlier, there are certain personality characteristics and traits and qualities that I have that I got as a very young person that a lot of other people don't get. I was encouraged to take risks. I was encouraged to make my own money. I used to love Superman. I used to, it's interesting. There's this guy, Gene Landrum. He writes these books about the common personality traits of successful people. There's about 12 of them or so, and I got just about all of them. And the book is really about the childhood of these individuals. Permissive parents, permissive parents who allow their children to kind of just go off and play and learn and fail without consequence. Being first, I'm not firstborn. My brother was first, but typically firstborn children are the successful ones because they have leadership qualities. And so a lot of those, almost all of them that were on the list I had, but I also have to, that's part of my work, is to realize that, a lot of entrepreneurs have a personality predisposition from their younger years that helps them to become successful. And my job is to help people get those qualities later on in life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Amazing and fascinating topics to learn the environment and what the child had as a programming. I remember we did with my wife some research about that before having kids, and I remember the difference between kids who were raised, in little wooden cage, comparing to kids who could run free in house, because you don't see the limits the same way when you grew up in a little square with your toys, or when you can freely. That's how we found our first boy on top of the television when he was a kid. Right. But at that time, wasn't the television the flat screen like we have today? But so it's fascinating.
Yeah, entrepreneurs are explorers, right? We're creators. We have an imagination, and children, around the age of 2 or 1 or 2, they're wired to explore. They're wired to create. They're wired to be curious. And what a lot of parents do is they punish that out of the child, where the child ends up feeling like, hey, if I create something, or if I'm curious about something, I ask why. If I want to explore, there's a possibility that I'm going to get punished. And so it creates an association in the brain that creativity and imagination leads to punishment, mental, emotional, possibly physical punishment, which may lead to abandonment. And this gets wired in the brain a long, long time ago. And then as adults, we wonder, like, why do I keep starting and stopping and starting and stopping? It's because unconsciously you have this association. I never had that association. I was encouraged to do all of these things and to explore. So I've been an entrepreneur since I was a little kid, going to the Oakland swap meet, selling comic books and baseball cards and stuff like that, all the way up to college, selling bootleg Tupac CDs, to selling my services, to selling online summits. And so this is something that is just part of me, because I saw that possibility in my father, who sold stuff at the swap meet over the weekends. And so if I didn't have that model and I didn't see that possibility, I'd probably be doing something different with my life right now. And I think this is a point, like most successful entrepreneurs that you see online have very similar stories.
Yeah.
But then what we try to do is say, okay, people who weren't raised by me, here's all the stuff that you need to do so you could have my kind of success, without focusing on the first step, which is the being. Like, who are you? Like, what are your traits? What are your qualities? What was your upbringing? What is your program? Because it's very hard to take somebody who's not programmed like me and just tell them to do all the things.
Yes.
Because they're not going to do them consistently, because that inner wiring says, no, we shouldn't do this. And so that's why my job is to work on the mindset first and get all those blocks out of the way and help people to find the confidence in themselves to do the things. Because, you know, we have like a lot of not so confident people walking the streets right now, you know, and if you're not confident in yourself, you're never going to have a successful business.
No,
like you're just not, because you have to be confident.
But it's even more fascinating, as I mentioned earlier, because you were not on the wrong environment to be a successful entrepreneur, but you could see with your own limitation, as you mentioned earlier about money, for example, but you could see how it works. And now you are helping entrepreneurs with a lot more wrong program to be successful. So it means that you probably, how did you discover that successful entrepreneur are this, but most of entrepreneurs without success have all these barrier, because you haven't go through all these. So did you learn it slowly, or did you have like a light who said, oh, but
yeah, you know what? One day a light came on for me, because, you know, I've been an affiliate for some online marketing course programs where I help somebody sell their course and I make money doing it. And, you know, over the years, as I thought about it, I kept thinking to myself, okay, I'm selling this program, making some pretty good money, but I can't really think of that many people who have actually gotten the result that they wanted. And I know so many people who have spent thousands of dollars on certifications, you know, to be coaches, and they never use the actual certification, or they maybe tried it for a couple of months and then they're like, no, I'm done. Wasn't fast enough for me. And a few years ago, I enrolled in a program, a marketing program. And in the first module, the creator of the program said, you know, 200 something people who've taken this program have become six-figure earners. 12 of them have become millionaires. And I was like, great, that's amazing. And then he said 10,500 people plus have taken the program. And I pulled out my calculator and I was like, whoa, that's like 2.3% success rate. And as I thought about it, I was like, yeah, that's actually just about right. And I started thinking, like, why is that? Like, why is this 2.3 or 2.7% of people, I forget the actual number, what makes those people different from the rest? And then I started stumbling upon Gene Landrum's work. And I started to see like, oh, successful entrepreneurs, they're wired differently than everybody else. And so that was like a big aha moment a couple of years ago. And I wrote an email about this, a newsletter about this to my newsletter list. And they were just like, I got my response that I got from that was just like, it was huge. People were like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. I've been struggling with that as well. And so I knew at some point, you know, I was going to create a program around that. And I ran the program for the first time. We just finished a couple of weeks ago. It was a 12-week program called the Boss Brain Method. And it went really, really well. Like I took 20 something people who hadn't been creating any online content, who didn't have any messaging, who had all these issues around money and marketing and sales, who weren't confident in themselves. And now they're creating content every single day and bringing in clients because they had to get that mental block out of the way. Yeah. And that mental block is something that the traditional, typical marketing guru very seldom talks about.
So can I ask you the question then? How is your percentage of success with your students?
We don't know yet. We don't know yet because we just finished 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So right now, in terms of their actual activity and creating content on the internet, it's freaking fantastic.
Nice.
It's awesome. Really good. Week number 6 of my program, we do a couple of weeks of like rehearsal where they rehearse the content they're going to create. And then weeks number 6 and 7, they actually have to create a public facing video. And a lot of them had never done that. And it was like, hey, you got to create this public facing video or you're out of the program. And everybody did their video. And it was just a great way to like push them into the pool. Yes. Yeah. You know what I mean? So they could be like, oh, it's not so bad in here. And so I was really proud of them. And for them, for a lot of them, that was a huge step because they had gone years going, I'm going to create a video on Monday. I'm going to create a video on March 1st. I'm going to create a video. And they never did it. So they just needed that push and they needed to wipe out those mindset blocks.
Yes, that push, but you had you as a mentor to hold them and to give them the tools for that. So
yeah, not only that, but they also had the community of students because we had 25 students. So it was a small group. And so they got to push each other and give each other feedback and hold each other accountable. And so, you know, I think that's another critical piece of entrepreneurship. Like you got the mindset, you have to have the messaging, you got to have the monetization, but you also have to have the mastermind. You have to have those people around you who support you because most entrepreneurs don't have entrepreneurial friends. Yep. You know, their friends are like, oh, you can't do it. It's kind of crabs in a bucket. You know, you're not going to be able to remember that last idea that you had that didn't quite work out. And so like one thing that all of us need as entrepreneurs is support from other entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's very important to have this tribe. Yeah.
Huge.
So Sean, as a coach, a big reader, a creator, what do you do as an entrepreneur to keep the energy up? Because you have your expertise as a personal trainer. So I guess you do train, you just eat real food, you have the right mindset. But what is a typical day or week that you use to keep the balance with the different energy buckets you need to keep up?
You know, my day can vary. I just recently got a puppy, so my schedule's been weird. But typically I get up at 5, take the dog out, I read for an hour, I get on the bike at 6 a.m. I ride the bike for 45 minutes. I stretch my calves for a good 10 minutes because I have really tight calves. Then I might take the dog for a walk, come home, take a shower, eat something. Then I'm at my desk writing something. Then I would teach my students for about an hour and a half or coach or mentor them for an hour and a half, Monday through Friday. And then take Kobe to the dog park typically. And then after that, I'm in bed reading or I'm in the garage working out. So it can really vary. But if I don't get that hour of reading first thing in the morning, and sometimes I'll read in the hot tub or I'll just read in bed. And if I don't get that 45 minutes of cardio in the morning, like my whole day is kind of shot because I'm thinking like, oh, I need to read, I need to work out, I'm behind. So that 2-hour period can kind of make or break my day. And so in terms of like food, most of my food is delivered. And so Thistle, I just started getting Daily Harvest so I can just make shakes really quickly. I don't really love to cook. It's just too time consuming and it takes too much thought. And so I just try to make my day as simple as I can possibly make it. And it works. It works for me. Yeah.
So is it some routine that you use for a long time, or is it building up with time, with the time, and you know yourself a little bit more, or is it like this forever?
It's like this for now. It's like this for now. It may change. Like I've never been like a big routine. Like my day's got to be structured and like structure sometimes kind of freaks me out. You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
people love it, but I'm just the kind of guy who likes to, to a certain extent, kind of fly by the seat of my pants. But, again, what's most important to me are those first 2 hours of the day. Yeah. So it's not the most, impressive routine in the world, but,
No.
it works for me. There's, excuse me, there's so many hours in a day.
Yeah.
You're awake for 16 hours a day. Like, I'm going to find a way to get everything I need done. And, typically, like, for me, working is like 4 or 5 hours a day. And then after that, I'm chilling. I just recorded a podcast episode about this yesterday from Mindset Coach. Like, I'm not the super grind and work 10-12 hours a day. Like, when I get like that, I get pretty miserable. I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I don't make 7 figures anymore, but I make really, really good money. And I have so much free time where I can enjoy my dog, and I can take care of my body, and I can eat good food, and I can get some sunlight, and I can sit in the hot tub, and I can hang out with friends, and just really enjoy my life rather than just like working all the time. Like, I have no interest in doing that. I get pretty miserable when I'm always working.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of us entrepreneurs, one of the reasons that we became entrepreneurs was so we can have more freedom, especially time freedom. And then we get kind of caught up in like, I need more. Okay, I'm making $100,000. Now I got to make $500,000. Now I got to make $1 million. Now I got to make $2 million. And with that usually comes more work.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yo, guys, if you can make $30,000 a month, I think you're good. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think you're good. And so that's my philosophy. Just it's income is nice, but I think lifestyle is just so important to me.
Because before you used to work more hours and feeling miserable. So do you feel like today in a better shape than a few years ago?
Like physical shape?
Yeah.
Not right now, because I did get a puppy in the last 3 months. I got like dog dad bod because my whole thing was all screwed up.
Okay.
But I am getting in better shape though now. Okay. For sure. Before I got my puppy, I was killing it. Like, I was in really good shape. I was at the gym every day doing step mill intervals, lifting. And then I got this guy and turned my world upside down. But I'm getting back into a pretty good groove with the fitness for sure.
Good. Yeah, because this is life. I mean, we can't be on the same level of optimization all the time. So I remember when we had our puppy, it was a totally different rhythm, of course.
Yes.
So what would you, because for the last 2 years, Sean, I don't know how you were living during this pandemic, but for entrepreneur, it was a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. How did you, of course, to be an online entrepreneur, I guess you didn't really feel the difference between before and after, but what would you advise to entrepreneurs who are stressed by the future, anxious about what's happening in the world today? What would be your advice for these entrepreneurs?
One step at a time. That's it. Break it down. Like, you got a big goal, like break it down to like, what is your next step, and do that. And then when you do that, if you fail, do the step again, but do it differently, right?
Yeah.
Based on what you learned from the failure, and do it again. And then once you succeed, then you move on to the next step. And then you move on to the next step. It's like little by little, little becomes a lot. Mm-hmm. So many of us will like stare at the top of the summit of the mountain when we're at the bottom, and it freaks us out. It's just too much. It's overwhelming. Like, the only way you're going to get to the top of that mountain is like one step at a time. And your brain can only handle so much. It's part of your brain called the ventral medial prefrontal cortex. Essentially, it's your brain's like to-do list. Mm-hmm. And it can only handle like 7 to 9 things in life completely. You know what I'm saying? And so with your business, when you're like, I got to do the Instagram, I got to do the Facebook, I got to do this, I got to do that, your brain's like, nah, man, this is way too much. Like, what is the next step? Let's do that one. And it's amazing because, I've always thought this way. There's 365 days in a year. And if I do something that's going to move me toward my goal 365 days in a row, oh my gosh. On day 365, you look back and you're like, oh my God, look how far up this mountain I've come. But if we're going to be at the bottom of the mountain, just staring at the top, you're never going to move anywhere.
No.
And so little by little, make the next move, be patient, understand that every successful person, like, it didn't happen overnight.
No.
I think I was reading the other day, like Richard Branson it took him 17 years to become successful. It took Jeff Bezos over a decade to be like successful. And so people who think like you're going to be successful and reach your goal, like in 1 year or 1 month or 2 years, it's just not going to happen. You know, everybody, you know, like you talked about my old YouTube videos. One thing I do with my students is I have this video where it's Gary Vaynerchuk's first video versus in one of his newer videos, in Marie Forleo's first video and one of her newer videos, and one of my first videos with the grainy video, and I got an earpiece in, like an old school microphone from like 2007, and my voice is even different, like I don't even sound like me. Like, people forget that. And so like if you want to be an influencer, if you want to be a coach, if you want to be whatever, like go back to their first content and see how bad it was, you know, and then you get to see like, yo, this is a process, and you can start now, or you cannot start now. You can start now and be where you want to be 5 years from now, or you can wait till 5 years from now to get started, and it's going to take you 10 years. And so just start in one step at a time.
One step at a time. Yes, it's very inspiring what you say, Sean. And as I mentioned earlier during this interview, when we saw your first video on underground wellness, we can see that you had a lot of passion, but less presence, as I mentioned earlier. And as you mentioned, I couldn't recall your voice at that time, but of course that's how many interviews, how many interventions you did over the last, so 2007, 14 years, 15 years since you started online. It's a lot of hours, but of course it was every time a little bit better. And today you do a quote of the day every day, and you have a new podcast, and you still work on reading and on yourself and on your energy level. And because it's, as you mentioned, it's your lifestyle. It's a lifestyle entrepreneur, and you live what you share. That's how we can be influenced on the internet. You cannot be influenced after a year of saying something, because since I started this podcast, I really enjoy it. I was a personal trainer, then I'm coaching coaches, but now that I'm doing podcasts, I really like it, and I'm preparing. But of course, I hope that in a year I will be a lot better by interviewing people and interacting and doing links and to inspire people. So thank you very much for your time, Sean, and your generosity with my audience. And I hope that a lot of people will be inspired like I am, even if I know you for a long time. And now you know me for an hour almost.
It's been a blast, man.
We can follow you on Instagram. You were pretty present on Instagram, but since you started your new mindset coach, you're a little bit less on Instagram. Is it in purpose?
I was just so busy teaching Boss Brain Method for the first time. The first time you teach a program is the hardest.
Yes.
You're kind of teaching things on the fly. So I was pretty burnt, because I took on Kobe, my dog. I took on the new podcast. I took on Boss Brain Method. I took on my EMI Plus group all at the same time. And so Instagram was something I wasn't really paying attention to. And honestly, you know, I don't really love Instagram that much. I have a love-hate relationship with Instagram. I'll talk about that on today's episode of the Quote of the Day show. And if I didn't have a podcast that, you know, got 1 million listens every month, I would probably be on Instagram a lot more. But my main thing is my main thing, which is the podcast. And so I kind of stick to that. Yeah.
So I will share, of course, all your details about the podcast of the day, and the Mindset Coach podcast. And SeanCrushton.com is your website, so we can find all the informations with the free ebook you are offering, with a little bit of information about your method. So thank you very much, Sean. I really appreciate. I hope you had a good time, because I'm pretty sure you have a lot of invitations. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, David. David, it's a real pleasure. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and see you.